Members can take their seats. Before we resume question period, I wish to explain to the House what just happened. As far as I know, member for Mississauga East Cooksville was in the midst of a supplementary question. I was listening to it intently. Apparently something may have been said which caused grave disorder, such that the Speaker felt it was necessary to recess the House. I didn't hear any of the comments that apparently were made or may or may not have been made, but I would ask the members if there are any members that would like to withdraw any unparliamentary comment. I would appreciate their willingness to do so. All right, I would ask the House for order for the remainder of question period. Member for University Rosedale.
My question is for the Premier. Why is the Premier only interested in proper public consultation when it serves his far-right extremist friends who want to drag Ontario's health curriculum back to 1998?
Premier. For the Minister of Government and Consumer Services.
Minister of Government Services.
Thank you, Speaker. In my capacity as Government House Leader, we will be standing on Standing Order 37H. We will not be answering any questions from the official opposition until we get some kind of an apology from the member opposite who made those comments. We will no longer be answering questions from the official opposition today.
Members will take your seat. Stop the clock. Supplementary question.
This Premier has rallied on and on about the significance of public engagement, yet he refuses to let the people of Toronto make their own decision about their government. It's clear that his word means very little. He wants it when he wants to roll back the Ontario health education curriculum, but he skips it when the results could threaten his ego. If public engagement is so important to this Premier, then why is he trampling over the people of Toronto and forcing this change on them with no input whatsoever?
Speaker, the members opposite can continue to ask questions of our government, but until we get some kind of formal apology, as is our right under Standing Order 37H, which says a minister may, in his or her discretion, decline to answer questions, the government will not be answering any questions from the official opposition here this morning. There's a simple solution to this problem. Everybody makes mistakes, Mr. Speaker. All we're expecting is an apology for the member of this side of the House who asked a question earlier in question period, and we will not be answering any further questions from the members of the official opposition until that happens.
For years, the people of Ontario have been seeking a new course. We have heard the voices of those who cannot afford another tax and simply cannot extend themselves any further. Our government was elected on a clear mandate to put the people first and make life more affordable for Ontario families. That included our plan to bring an end to the Liberal cap-and-trade carbon tax. We have already introduced legislation to this effect, but, Mr. Speaker, my constituents in Kitchener South Hespeler are concerned that the federal government is just going to replace this cap-and-trade with another Trudeau tax. Will the Minister of the Environment advise us what the government is doing to ensure the tax we are fighting so hard to get rid of will not be replaced with another one?
Great question. For the Environment, Conservation and Parks.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from Kitchener South Hespeler for a question. I'm pleased to, as the House knows, we began the debate of Bill 4 in this legislature, the Cap-and-Trade Cancellation Act, which will finally put an end to the cap-and-trade here in Ontario. And, Mr. Speaker, we did not do that to see it replaced by a federal Liberal tax. This morning, I was pleased to join my colleague, the Attorney General, to announce the next steps the government's taking to the courts to stop the federal government. Mr. Speaker, today we announced we'll be taking the feds to court to challenge their carbon tax. Mr. Speaker, it'll be a great day for Ontario when we win that court challenge, and we will win that court challenge. Speaker, we promised that we would make use of every tool in our toolkit to make sure that we stopped a federal tax and a provincial tax.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, back to the minister. I'd like to thank you for your response, and I completely support what you are doing to respect our taxpayers. Speaker, we understand that carbon taxes are not effective, and that the people of Ontario understand that carbon taxes will not be revenue neutral. Today, with uncertainty in the global economy and turmoil in our trade relationships, the people and the businesses of Ontario simply cannot afford another job-killing tax.
Hear, hear.
Now it seems that Prime Minister Trudeau is admitting it. After closed-doors meetings with businesses, they're softening their tone. No doubt they heard the same things that we are hearing from average Canadians every day. A carbon tax is simply unaffordable. Minister, will you continue to fight for those who cannot afford the cost of a Trudeau carbon tax?
Question. Response. Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for her supplementary question. As the member noted yesterday, the federal Liberals started their climb down on carbon tax after meetings with business where those businesses were clear that they could not compete globally with a carbon tax hanging over their head. In effect, the Trudeau Liberals are now acknowledging that they are inviting economic catastrophe with their carbon tax. Fine. The federal government is now acknowledging that their carbon tax is bad for jobs and bad for business. If the Prime Minister is willing to make deals with business on the carbon tax, it's time for him to do the right thing and scrap his carbon tax for all of the people. Mr. Speaker, our message to the Prime Minister is clear. It's never too late to do the right thing. Cancel your carbon tax.
Madame, vous avez quelque chose à dire, madame? Je veux savoir quand vous allez nous remettre les 146 millions qu'on a payés pour vos immigrants illégaux. Okay. Madame.
Cette intolérance par rapport aux immigrants, ça n'a pas sa place au Canada. Cette intolérance par rapport à la diversité, vous n'avez pas votre place ici. Madame, le Canada a été toxique dans les immigrations qui ont été accueillies dans les Premières Nations, qui nous ont montré comment bâtir une société forte. Et madame, votre intolérance n'a pas sa place ici. Et madame, votre peur des autres, votre intolérance n'a pas sa place parmi nous ce soir. Il va y avoir de l'intolérance dans les mois à venir. Il va y avoir des attaques dans les mois à venir. Et il faut que vous sachiez que la force, c'est de se rassembler et non de crier, non de semer la peur, non de semer l'intolérance, madame. Oui, madame, je suis tolérant de toutes les perspectives. C'est vous, madame, qui êtes intolérante. Et vous n'aurez pas votre place dans ce gouvernement.
London's not the only city that requires more government support to ensure that refugees and asylum seekers are properly housed. Yet this Conservative government chose to walk away from $11 million in federal funding for provincial refugee resettlement, downloading costs to already overwhelmed municipalities. Mr. Speaker, will the Premier take concrete steps to provide support and housing and stop shifting the responsibility to other governments? Will they be opening the provincially and federally owned properties now?
Thank you. Minister.
Speaker, where in the world does $11 million equal $175 million? I think that's an irresponsible response from the member opposite. He should know that the federal government has sole jurisdiction over border management and Canada's refugee and asylum programs, including who is eligible for a refugee claim. Over $328 million comes from my department in social assistance for refugee claimants. We support them in many different ways, including with over $100 million in resettlement. What we are asking on this side of the House, and which Rachel Notley and Joe Horgan John Horgan agreed with, is to make sure that when the illegal border crossers come in and they are seeking asylum during that period of time, that the federal government pays its own way. So I ask you again, are you on the side of Ontario or are you on the side of Justin Trudeau?
Stop the clock. And members will please take their seats.
Glenn McGregor, CTV News. Just following up on David's question, the woman who confronted you in Quebec last week and asked some questions about the cost of immigration that a lot of Canadians share. You called her a racist, and I'm wondering what your thinking was there and what she said that you consider to be racist.
You know, one of the things that we recognize is there has been a polarization in our political discourse, and there are people who are trying to feed fears and intolerance for a broad range of reasons. And I will remain positive and remain pulling people together, pulling communities together right across this country. But I will also be very clear when people are trying to push politics of fear and indeed intolerance. That's something that Canadians expect of me. That's something that I will always do.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
People kind, people kind, people kind.
Fellas.